Two paramedics are cutting through the streets of New Orleans at night. Steve and Dennis have seen the worst this city can offer. But lately, the calls are getting stranger. The first scene that hits them hard is a couple in a hotel room. The woman is having vivid, terrifying hallucinations. A primordial forest seems to be growing right out of the walls around her. It's unlike anything Steve and Dennis have ever responded to. Then come more calls. A burn victim with no logical explanation for the burns. A woman with a venomous snake bite from an eastern diamondback rattler. A snake that has no business being anywhere near New Orleans. Each scene is stranger than the last. And each one leaves behind strange artifacts. Objects that don't belong in the modern world. Nobody survives to explain what happened. Nobody can make sense of any of it. But there is one thread connecting every single case. A small designer drug called Synchronic. Steve Denube and Dennis Damnelli have been partners for years. These streets are their second home. Dennis is the family man. Married to Tara, 2 daughters, a life built around people he loves. But cracks are forming at home, and he knows it. Steve is the opposite. A bachelor by choice. Charming, restless, living entirely in the present. Never looking too far ahead. And there's a reason for that. A reason Steve hasn't shared with Dennis yet. The Synchronic cases keep multiplying. Steve becomes obsessed with getting the drug off the streets. He goes to a local smoke shop and buys every bottle they have. The manager tells him the drug has been discontinued. There won't be more. But the damage is already done. Then comes the call that changes everything. Steve and Dennis respond to a scene involving a group of teenagers. They've been using Synchronic. And among that group was Brianna. Dennis's teenage daughter. Because Brianna is gone. Witnesses say she was sitting in a chair one moment. And simply vanished the next. No exit. No explanation. Just gone. Dennis falls apart. Steve has never seen his partner like this. So Steve makes a decision. He still has the pills he bought from the smoke shop. He's going to figure out exactly what this drug does. He goes home. Alone. And he takes Synchronic. Reality begins to dissolve around him. He's still in the same physical location. Same New Orleans. Same spot. But the time around him peels back. He lands in a swampland. Ancient. Raw. Before the city ever existed. He barely has time to process it before an alligator charges him from the water. He runs. Then a man with a weapon comes at him from the trees. And just like that, he snaps back. 7 minutes. That's all he got. Steve sits in his apartment, shaking. But thinking. He grabs his phone and starts recording. He needs to document this. Systematically. Scientifically. Because what just happened is time travel. Here's what Steve figures out over a series of experiments. The drug sends you back in time. But it keeps you anchored to the same geographic location. You go back in history to whatever existed in that exact spot. 7 minutes. That's your window. Then you return. But if you move too far from where you took the pill, you might not make it back. The tether snaps. And you stay in the past. Forever. Steve starts mapping every trip obsessively. Each pill sends you to a different specific point in history. Like a fixed frequency. A locked-in coordinate in time. He travels to the Ice Age. He finds himself in the middle of a KKK gathering in the 1920s. He has to run for his life. He encounters Spanish conquistadors. He witnesses eras of Louisiana history that no textbook could prepare you for. And here's what hits him the hardest. History is brutal. Especially for a black man traveling through American time. Every era he lands in carries its own specific violence. Its own specific danger. The past is not romantic. It is not safe. This is why the Synchronic victims are dying. They're being transported back and killed by the world they land in. The woman burned alive. The man stabbed by a sword. The snake bite. They return to the present as corpses. Already dead when they snap back. Now Steve understands. And now he has to find Brianna. But there's something else he discovers during his experiments. Something that changes the stakes completely. He takes his dog Hawking with him on one trip. Back to the 1920s. He gets chased by a KKK member. In the chaos, he moves from his original spot. He isn't touching Hawking in that moment. When Steve returns, Hawking doesn't come with him. He watches his dog fade away in the present. Lost in another decade. Gone. Contact matters. Physical connection is everything. If you want to bring something back with you, you have to be holding it. Touching it. Anchored to it. This is the key. This might be how he saves Brianna. But here's the cruel twist Steve has been keeping from Dennis. He has a tumor near his pineal gland. Inoperable. The doctor told him he could have 6 weeks or 60 years. Nobody knows. And that tumor is the exact reason the drug works on him at all. Most adults experience Synchronic only as a ghost. A vision. They can't physically interact with the past. But Steve can. His altered brain chemistry makes him present. Real. Tangible in whatever era he lands in. He is the only person alive who can go back and physically bring Brianna home. He finally tells Dennis everything. The experiments. The footage. The tumor. They sit together quietly on a curb in the Garden District. Two best friends facing the impossible. Dennis doesn't try to talk him out of it. He can't. They go to the cemetery together. Steve shows Dennis where his family is buried. Coffins displaced during Hurricane Katrina. Their serial numbers traced back to Steve's own lineage. A reminder of how deeply this city holds its history. Then they go to the park. The exact spot where Brianna disappeared. Steve takes a pill from the very chair she was sitting in. If she took it here, and location determines the time. This pill should send him to where she is. He lands in chaos. The Battle of New Orleans. Gunfire. Smoke. Soldiers everywhere. The year is somewhere in the early 1800s. And the world is at war. Steve moves carefully. He has 7 minutes. He cannot afford to panic. He searches through the chaos of battle. Through the trenches. Through the smoke. And then, he finds her. Brianna. Terrified. Shaking. Alone in a war she has no way to understand. Steve grabs her. He holds her tight. They run together back toward the boulder. The anchor point. The spot where he took the pill. But a man intercepts them. A looter. Armed. He looks at Steve and sees only one thing. Through the lens of that era. He holds Steve at gunpoint. Assumes he is a slave. The clock is running down. There is no time to reason. No time to fight. Steve makes a choice. He passes his last pill to Brianna. He makes sure she is standing at the anchor point. He holds her there. And in the final seconds, she snaps back to the present. Back to Dennis. Back to her life. Back to everything. And Steve stays behind. Stranded in 1815. In a war. In a world that sees him as property. Back in the present, Brianna gasps back into existence. Dennis catches her. He holds her like he's never letting go. And then, something extraordinary happens. Steve appears. Not physically. As something else. A presence. A shimmer. He and Dennis reach toward each other. A handshake across time. Across whatever barrier now exists between them. And the film ends there. Without resolution. Without certainty. Did Steve find a way back? The movie doesn't say. And that ambiguity is the point. Because Synchronic was never really about the drug. It was never really about time travel. It was about two men running out of time in very different ways. Dennis losing his family one crack at a time. Steve carrying a death sentence in his own skull. And in the end, the man with nothing left to lose gave everything he had left. Steve spent his whole life refusing to look forward. Never settling. Never building. And then he used his final moments to secure someone else's entire future. That's the movie. That's the whole thing. If you want more films that hit this hard and this quiet, stay right here on Screen Summarized. Subscribe, because every story deserves to be told right.